Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Today, we will be discussing maximizing your statewide missing persons alerts. My name is Hannah. I'm a marketing manager in the public safety sector here at Everbridge, and I'll be moderating this session. For today's event, we have a panel to discuss numerous aspects of missing persons alerting, including activation and coordination, collaboration and information sharing, and public awareness and community engagement. All of our webinars are recorded, and you can also find them in the resources section of our website. The recording to the video will be sent out after this session, either today or later this week. If you have any questions, you can email me at hannah.meeks@everbridge.com. If you have questions during the webinar, you can submit them in the question and answer portion seen below. These questions will be answered at the end of the session as time allows. Today, I'd love to introduce our speakers. First, we have Carrie Gordon, who is the Program Manager and Washington State Amber Alert Coordinator for the Missing and Unidentified Persons Unit of the Washington State Emergency Management Department. We also have Rachel Salas, who is the Statewide Alert Coordinator for Florida's Department of Law Enforcement's Missing Endangered Persons Information Clearinghouse. And lastly, we have Justin Howlett, who's the Lieutenant for California Highway Patrol's Counterterrorism and Threat Awareness Section. Joining them is Everbridge employee Kate Dean, who is a Technical Account Manager and Public Safety Lead, and who has a background in Florida emergency management. Kate, please take it away.
Alrighty, thanks, Hannah. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. My name is Kate Dean. Like Hannah said, I am a technical account manager. I'm also our public safety lead. So I get to work with people all over the nation when we talk about emergency management and public safety, how we can maximize their Everbridge usage when we talk about public safety. I'm joined by 3 different states here, Florida, Washington, and California. If you guys don't mind just giving us a little bit of background, we'll start with you, Carrie.
Thank you. I've worked for actually the Washington State Patrol for 32 years. Majority of that spent in dispatch. Well, actually now with the time, the majority is going to be spent in the current job I'm in, because I've been in this job for 12 years, and I am responsible for all of the missing person alerting for Washington State, and the various alerts: Amber, Endangered, Missing, Silver Alert, and the Missing Indigenous Person Alert. Our unit is also responsible for Missing Persons Clearinghouse and the repository for all dental records in Washington State. So we kind of have our hands in various systems.
Awesome, thank you. Rachel? I think you're on mute.
Gonna try it again. All right. My name is Rachel Salas. I'm the Statewide Alert Coordinator for Florida. We're housed in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and we are the Missing and Endangered Persons Information Clearinghouse. I've been with FDLE for about just over 7 years. Most of that has been in the Enforcement and Investigative Support Unit. Most of it has been with either missing persons or the sex offender unit. Started as an analyst in missing persons, took a break and did some technical things with the sexual offender database, and then I have come back to the homeland as the coordinator over in MEPIC for the last 2 years.
We're glad to have you. Lieutenant Howlett?
Hi, good morning. Well, good afternoon for some of you. I'm Lieutenant Howlett. I work at the Counterterrorism and Threat Awareness Section for the California Highway Patrol. I've been with the California Highway Patrol for 23 years, approximately 12 of which have been in the Missing Persons Alert Unit, which is housed within our Counterterrorism and Threat Awareness Section.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining me today. In my role, I mainly work with Florida agencies and with Rachel, but with my public safety lead role, I get to work with agencies all across the nation, especially with my expertise in IPAWS. I get pulled in a lot when we talk to other state agencies about missing persons, that all of the new alerts that are coming out when we talk about statewide alerts. So I'm really glad that we were able to have this webinar and talk about it in more of like a panel discussion rather than me talking to each of you guys individually and telling you like, oh, I think this state does that and that state does that. I'm really happy that we get to do this. So to get started, you guys are all state agencies, housed in a state agency. How is your agency notified of a missing person alert request? Rachel, we can start with you.
For us, the local law enforcement agency of jurisdiction needs to call our hotline in order to request that alert. Sometimes we'll see a BOLO and there will be some language that says amber alert, silver alert, something like that. And when it's brought to our attention, we'll reach out to that agency just for clarification if they're actually looking for an alert and go on from there. Sometimes they send us emails, but our hotline is manned 24/7. Emails are not. That's it.
So for the hotline, so a local agency is calling the hotline. How do they get to you guys, like the pictures of the missing people or the vehicles, things like that?
They'll email it to us. If they can't email it to us, they'll send a text message to one of the supervisor's phone, and then we'll email it to the unit.
Perfect. Carrie?
Actually very similar. So our unit of 4 is now responsible for all of the alerting for the state. So we have a rotation for an on-call person. We have a phone number that is assigned to whoever is on call for that particular time frame. So the agencies would call ideally and send the pre-formatted data entry form along with any photos by email. So it's kind of a simultaneous system. Ideally, they should email the form along with photographs as well as call the 24-hour phone number for the on-call person.
Awesome. And Lieutenant Howlett?
Yeah, similarly to what they both just said, state law in California requires that our alerts come from the investigating agency themselves. They'll contact us. We have a 24-hour phone number that's manned 24 hours a day by uniformed personnel. We also have a shared email account for agencies to utilize that's manned by all of those personnel. And when they contact us, we often, if time and circumstances allow, we usually ask that the investigating agency put us in contact with the boots on the ground is probably the best way to say it, because obviously the person that's actually on the ground with the missing persons case investigating it is going to be the one with the most accurate and up-to-date information. So we, if time allows, we always want to talk to that person specifically.
Perfect. And after confirming the validity of the request, how long does it take for your team to send the missing persons alert? So after you receive the phone call, you receive all of the information that you need, how long does it take? And we'll just go backwards. So Lieutenant Howlett, how long?
So once we have all the information we need, it's we average between 15 and 20 minutes for activation times.
And that's like sending your iPod, sending all of that kind of stuff, getting.
Correct. Some of the ancillary notifications may take us a little bit longer, such as contacting the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Sometimes that may take us a little bit longer to get that ball rolling, but the emergency alert system and wireless emergency alert through Everbridge, which is amazing, has usually averages 15 to 20 minutes, but it sometimes is delayed because the agency doesn't actually have all the information that we need. So we'll be kind of going in a back and forth with that agency for them to get us photographs or current information on the suspect or victims.
Carrie?
Yeah, exact same thing. The time delays are more so trying to get all the information together. I'd say time-wise, we average very similarly 15 to 30 minutes at the long end, but that's, you know, trying to get photographs, trying to get more information and communicating with whoever has that information. So We do something very similar to what California does, and we create a poster or a flyer. And so that can take some time with formatting photographs and, you know, the actual content of the poster or the flyer. So yeah, I would say all told, we're averaging 15 to 30 minutes. But I will say now that it's housed within my unit, we're down from, you know, when it was in dispatch, it could take upwards of an hour for somebody who is dispatching and doing everything. Now to having one person be that sole point of entry, we've shaved off, you know, more than half the time it takes. So, you know, I think this this partnership with Everbridge and what we're doing now, you know, being housed in a single source point of contact has really saved us a lot of time. So
That's awesome. Rachel?
Just like Carrie said, previously it would take 2 to 3 hours for us to do this. Over the last few years, we have made enhancements to our database. Now, our database will do all the heavy lifting for us. So we enter all the information and it will create all of our documents, our flyers, so it's the consistent format, so we're not playing around with that too much. Of course, there's always exceptions. If we have all of the information and the photos, about 15 minutes, like Carrie said, also on the longer end, 30 minutes if something is real complicated and we might have to kind of play around with how we do things. But we've done them, especially since we have iPOS through Everbridge now, that cuts easily 30 minutes off, because the EAS used to just be a nightmare to do, and the WIA we would send through NECMEC, so there was a delay in that as well. So being able to do it ourselves and do it immediately, we get in there and it's maybe 5 minutes in Everbridge to send out the WIA and the EAS. We've come a long way.
Yeah, I think a lot of agencies have. There's definitely, in the beginning, I think that there were a lot of the same kind of roadblocks, the same kind of hiccups, but, you know, as technology advances, as state laws advance, kind of giving you guys more power and more responsibility to kind of, you know, shave off some of that time, shorten your response time there. And Rachel, we'll go back to you. Are there any special considerations that your state applies when sending a missing persons alert? I'm talking like timing of your alert, how, you know, Florida, California, Washington, they're all pretty big states. How do you determine how far you're sending your alert, things like that?
It depends on what alert it is. And there's variables like how long they've been missing, if they're in a vehicle, what time of the day it is. We will typically look, if we can regionalize the WIA, we're going to. We get great success out of what we call targeted WIAs that we use for our enhanced missing child alert. We try to avoid sending it statewide, but the rule of thumb that we have is if they've been missing for 6 hours or longer, we are going to send it statewide, because you can get from Miami, in theory, to the Panhandle if you drive real fast in 6 hours.
That's real fast.
That's real fast. We'll say Miami to Jacksonville and then get out of the state. But like I said, I'm a big proponent on targeting as much as we can. Our statistics show that most of our alerts are resolved either in the county that they went missing from or one of the counties that touches that missing county. So again, if we don't have to blow up the state, I'd rather not.
Right. Lieutenant?
Yeah, so I'll mirror what Rachel said. We very much try to geographically target our alerts because we're staffed by uniformed personnel 24 hours a day. We'll oftentimes try to do vehicle or cell phone tracking or other investigative tools to try and narrow down the location where the suspect and or victim may be, and then we will target our alert to that general location. We found that statewide or even mass notifications over multiple counties just oversaturate the public, and and desensitize them to those alerts. So we really try to target those down, and then time and distance matter for the wireless emergency alert as well. We're not unless circumstances truly show us that it's going to be effective, we almost never activate a wireless emergency alert at night, because nobody's in their bed sleeping is going to be able to actually help find that kid. They're not going to jump out of their covers, run out their front door, and try and find that missing person. So it doesn't tend to be effective. Now, there are circumstances where we have done it, where an investigating law enforcement agency has given us very good information that if we don't get every single person's eyes on this as soon as possible, this child or missing person is going to be murdered or something like that. So we don't have any hard and fast rules. We just have guidelines that we go by, and then we always talk to our investigating agencies to get the most information that we can to determine what the best course of action is.
Perfect. And Carrie?
Yeah, exact same. And I will say that prior to last year, when we switched over to Everbridge and having our unit do all of the alerting, Amber Alerts were, even for WIA, statewide by default. So we were, like Rachel said, blowing up the whole state for no possibility that the incident was going to move from one side of the state to the other. So now with us being, responsible for the hands-on activation through Everbridge, we are geographically targeting our alerts in conversation with the primary agency on where they think the likelihood of this incident moving to. We've activated the wireless alerts along the I-5 corridor in Western Washington, all the counties on that corridor. So it's really given us a lot more flexibility, and we've been successful. So, I mean, the numbers show that it works. And we do have built into our state Amber Alert plan that we will not activate the WIA portion through iPause between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. But the caveat of that is that in conversation with the activating agency, if we feel that activating WIA during those hours, is super critical to that life or death of the child or the missing person, then we can make that decision to override that particular language in the plan. We haven't yet, knock on wood, but we will. If we get a confirmed sighting of a stranger abduction at 11 o'clock at night, and we have a vehicle and we have everything we need, then we're going to do it. So it's all in the best interest of the safety of the missing person. So that's how we make our decisions.
Absolutely. For our next question, how does your agency encourage community awareness about these alerts outside of the iPause notification? So I know a lot of you guys are sending, your iPause alert once you get your message, but are you sending it a different way? Are you allowing opt-ins, social media, any kind of community awareness regarding, those kind of things? Because I know working in mass notification, I'm constantly telling people, like, if they did get a 5 a.m. missing persons alert, it's because it was critical, like things like that. And they're like, why was I woken up? And I'm like, well, it was critical. And I'm kind of, I've been doing my own community awareness. It's mostly my mom. But that kind of stuff. Like, how are you encouraging your public to be more aware of these types of things? And Carrie, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, we actually took a page out of California's book, and we try to follow up after every alert, especially if it's resolved successfully because of the alert. We try to put something out afterwards saying, because of your involvement, because of the community involvement, this child was located safely. Now, does that happen every time? No, but we do it as much as we possibly can. As far as outside of iPause and alerting, we use a listserv email that the public signs up for on our website, and they can sign up for any or all of the alerts, and they would receive them by email. And that way, the actual interface through Everbridge, we have one email address in there for each alert type. Because we already have existing subscribers to our listserv, we've just found that has worked better for us. So the public can sign up to receive them by email. We post to Twitter. And we send out the WIA. So that's how we're reaching the public.
Perfect. And Lieutenant, I know you guys have a pretty robust Twitter interface. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, our social media is definitely our most powerful tool to reach the public right now. Our Twitter engagement, last I checked, was upwards of 3.5 million. I believe. Don't quote me on that because I haven't checked in a little while, but for a law enforcement agency, that's pretty big for engagement on our Twitter account. And that's because our Twitter account is solely for our missing persons alerts. We don't try to push out anything else, even if it's something important to us. We make sure that it's exclusively for our missing persons alerts. And Carrie, thank you for giving us credit for that. But yeah, we absolutely, after the missing person is found, we always engage on social media saying, hey, thank you, the person was found. We also have, every once in a while on that page, we'll push out little small media or information pages with just a little bit of information on all of our alerts within California, what the public can do to help us, and more information so that the public knows what the purpose of these alerts is. And our alerts, when we actually push out a wireless emergency alert, it links directly to that Twitter page with all that information, so that they're not just getting, not that there's anything wrong with it, but a picture's worth 1,000 words, as everybody says. And when you push out a WIA, you can't put a picture in there. So instead of putting the picture in there, we link it directly to Twitter, where we have all of our information on a flyer blasted right out for them. So everything's right there for them to look at. And it's been extremely successful. Just numbers alone, our recovery times once we actually activate an alert has gone down significantly since we've started utilizing social media in this manner to engage the public. It's proven exponentially effective.
That's awesome. I think it is it's something that I always talk about with customers that are talking about sending out Amber Alerts, how you guys link to your Twitter feed, so that way they can get so much information. Because the iPause alert, the WIA alert is so limited, most of our constituents are going to get that 90-character message, which 90 characters goes by really, really quickly, especially with all of the information trying to tell the public about this missing person scenario. Being able to link directly to Twitter can be really beneficial.
And
especially because Twitter can handle it.
And we worked directly with Twitter because, long story short, they didn't realize how much engagement we were going to get off of that Twitter page, and we actually broke Twitter. We didn't break them, but we weren't on a large enough server, and it ended up bogging down their server, and people weren't able to access it. So they actually put us on a much larger server, with celebrities and stuff, which I think is kind of cool. But when we talk about law enforcement for this purpose, for something that's really near and dear to the public's heart, contact Twitter's law enforcement liaisons, because they will work with you to make sure that your Twitter page works for what you need it for.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make, because I work with people all of the time that will link to their county website or their state website and say, go here for more information. And they don't realize that WIA alert is going to hit, in some states, millions of phones at the same time. So that's millions of people clicking on the alert. And no county or state website is prepared for the amount of clicks. But Twitter, especially if you work with your, a Twitter public safety designee, can help you kind of navigate that a little bit more. And I even have people that will point to Twitter for more information, and then their Twitter points to their website. So it kind of delays that, eventual website that has the press release, has, the evacuation tool that they're trying to point towards, but gives them some stoppage, and it gives them time to kind of catch up with all of the demand, instead of 20 million phones in the state of Florida clicking on the same link. So I think that's a really good point to make. And then Rachel, I know in Florida, we also have an opt-in type of option.
Before I talk about that, I'll say that CHP is kind of a celebrity in my world of how you do things. But going back to Kate, yeah, so we have we're subscriber based. We used to have a listserv. We've moved all of our alerts over to an email ingestion through Everbridge. They're able to get emails and or text messages, whatever they prefer, for whatever alert that they want, all one. Ideally they create an account, and they have full control over what they're getting when they're getting it. The other things that we do is we reach out to some of our partner agencies like the Department of Transportation to light up those highway signs, the dynamic highway signs. I would say after the WIA, those DOT signs are probably how we get most of our direct recoveries, that the person is recovered from something that the clearinghouse sent out. We also send things to the lottery. We send bolos out to local law enforcement statewide. For child alerts, we will post, the PIOs will post the flyer on our social media pages. I always encourage the requesting agency to utilize their social media, contact their PIO. And we also use an antiquated system called Media Alert that sends the information to, I don't know, a small news station in Three Eggs, Florida. That's not quite up to date. I am desperately trying to get us to have our own social media. Again, when I found that out last year from California, I've been planting seeds ever since. Now I just come out straight out and say, I want MEPIC to have their own. I don't think it's going to happen, but I have dreams. And just like California, in our WIA, we're using a shortened URL. It's going through a Microsoft vendor. So it sends that flyer up into the cloud, just like Kate said. So we're not taking down our servers with the millions plus of people that are clicking it in Florida. We've had great success with that. We will send activations and cancellations, both. If we posted something on social media, it'll show that it's been canceled. Any subscribers will also get a cancellation email or text message. When it's child alerts, we will say the child is safe. If it ended in an unfortunate way, we'll get language from our PIO on exactly what we're going to put out there.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw some of those DOT signs on Sunday while I was driving north on 95. So I kept my eyes peeled. Are there any challenges your agency has faced in the past, and how did you overcome them? I know that you guys all kind of touched on your time that you've reduced on your notification, the time that you have worked on reducing your recovery, anything along those lines. Like, how did you do that? Were there laws that changed? I know, Carrie, you mentioned, creating your unit, things like that. Like, how did you, what challenges were you facing before? And then, what helped you to overcome them? And we'll start with you, Lieutenant.
I wouldn't say challenges, I'd say more of limitations, because as we've already talked about, 90 characters on Twitter is not enough information, or not enough space to get out all the information that we need to get out to the public. So just finding ways to get around the limitations that we face when we're trying to engage the public and engage the media with our alerts has always been a challenge, and we just work around those limitations, and I think we've done a very good job. I think every state has done a very good job of doing the best with what they have. And then I think the next challenge is always just looking for what's next. What's the next big thing, the next way that we can engage the public the best to keep getting this message out. Because as you know, social media and technology moves so quickly right now that we always have to just be looking for what's the next big thing, then what's the next way that we can engage the public.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Carrie?
A couple things come to mind. The first one being is educating the public of what the alerts are and what we're going to post, for example, on the DOT signs. I think that kind of triggered something for me, is that our missing Indigenous person alert will not fit anywhere on a variable message sign. That is way too many characters. So we came up with the acronym MIPA, M-I-P-A. Well, educating the public on what that means when they see it on the highway signs. What is a MIPA? And so we've just kind of been trying to use it as much as possible when we do media interviews, when we're posting to Twitter, so that we can use that as an educational time. Also, our unit staff, we only have 4 of us in our unit. So rotating the on-call 24/7 has been a bit of a challenge, because, if you're down 1 or 2 people in that 4-person rotation, then you're putting a heavy load on the remaining folks. So trying to find alternatives, backup folks to take the phone calls for us, that has been a more recent challenge that we've been trying to bring on board some backup folks to help us out after hours, or when we have other plans, or when we're short a person because of illness. So it just, you know, it's just been an interesting transition out of dispatch to a small group of 4, and perhaps, you know, with numbers and with analytics later on, we can justify more staffing, but in the meantime, it's on us. So
Yeah, that's staffing is always a challenge. It can, especially if you're 24. I can see that. Rachel?
Well, I think the lieutenant and Carrie covered a lot that relates to Florida as well. The biggest issue, the most recent issue that we've had is another agency sending out a WIA at an unpleasant time, and the clearinghouse getting blamed because people associate WIAs with Amber Alerts. We have an uphill battle to try to get the public back to buy in to sign up to those WIAs. We have created some flashy, you know, handouts that we do at events. Our PIO had posted it to social media. I know my staff, and don't mean to rub it in, Carrie, but currently we have 16 analysts. We're going to get, I think, 5 more. So they are little, you know, social warriors. So they go out and they spread the word themselves. They post things on their own. The technical side of things also was a hurdle for us. The biggest challenge, of course, is if something goes down. So like I said, our database will create all of our documents and our flyer. About a year ago, we had our production database go down for no reason. So we figured out that we could utilize our test environment in order to generate those documents. And then after the production came back up, we were able to input the information without sending it out. Everbridge has been a huge, huge game changer for us. Previously, we had to pick EAS regions. We couldn't even target counties. It was just groups of counties. So being able to do that targeted WIA, again, we can do it, you know, as small as we want. Typically, we look for like a 5-mile radius, but we can blow that out. We can, you know, just do neighborhoods. Jacksonville County, Duval County is our probably biggest customer for our enhanced missing child alerts. Again, those are children who are in an immediate threat of harm or serious bodily injury or death that are on foot. So we think about, you know, autistic children and things like that who wander off. I think in 2022, Jacksonville requested 12 enhanced missing child alerts, and 10 of those were resolved because of the WIA. And in our WIA, again, we put that URL, but we also try to target what it's saying. So instead of saying missing child in Florida, or even missing child in Jacksonville, we're hitting landmarks. You know, missing child, Bradford Park area. Some, you know, if we can do intersections, things like that. So when people get it, they understand that's in my backyard. It's different when, you know, we're sending something from Miami up to Jacksonville, because then they're going to say, what am I going to do about somebody in Miami, without understanding that they could be in Jacksonville. So the public education is a real challenge, and Florida is open to any suggestions on how you guys do it, because we need a lot of buy-in from our local law enforcement agencies to re-educate them, because they've had a high turnover. We have new alerts, right? We started a purple alert, which is a very vague alert that was in July of last year. And we are trending to do over 300 of those this year. As Carrie said, staffing for 24-hour, 7 days a week 365, it's really difficult. Technically, we have a midnight shift right now. We've been operating without one. So we do have an analyst that goes on call, and those are, weeks at a time. But yeah, if you lose, we also had a huge chunk of new analysts, so they wouldn't be able to be on call, which puts more burden on the senior analysts. We're getting there.
And then talk a little bit more about the purple alerts and all of the different types of alerts. I know that this is happening kind of nationwide, where your agencies are no longer just focused on Amber Alert. People are so familiar with an Amber Alert, what an Amber Alert is, all that kind of stuff. But now we're adding a bunch of different colors and words and stuff for your different types of alerts, because it doesn't always fall into that Amber.
Right. So I think branching off of the Amber, we have our missing child alert, where again, the child is endangered, but there's not a kidnapping involved. From there, we broke it down to the enhanced missing child alert. Again, that's where we're going to use a targeted WIA. We won't use a WIA for just a regular missing child alert. It has to be that enhanced, because we have to have a geographical spot that we can target. Silver alerts for Florida is anybody over the age of 60 who has Alzheimer's or dementia. There's a statewide and there's a local. Statewide, we need to have a vehicle. We need to have a vehicle tag in order to do it. If they're not in a vehicle and they're on foot, it's the local law enforcement agency's job to notify law enforcement and the public. And how they do that, we're not a part of. I won't know if a local silver alert goes out. The purple alerts are extra special. They are extremely vague. It's basically anybody who has a mental, physical, or emotional disability that can only be brought back to safety through law enforcement intervention. Again, we only started it just under a year ago. High volume, not a lot of buy-in, not a lot of public reach when they're on foot. If they are in a vehicle, again, we can utilize those DOT signs. The lottery will go ahead and post it out. But when they're on foot, it's extremely limited. And so I'm hoping that we can rewrite that statute and get a local and a statewide purple. But I also spoke to Kansas City, and they have a social worker that works in this department, that department, and that works with, the hospitals and facilities and things like that. If we can get a listserv type thing, which would go through Everbridge, for those members, that it would be huge for us, I think, because they are the ones that the people go back to a different facility. They know where they may be hanging out, things like that. So again, buy-in from the public and getting more partner agencies would be a big deal.
Perfect. Yeah, there has been quite a few purple alerts, and obviously down here in Florida, we deal with a lot of silver alerts just because of our state demographics. Lieutenant Carey, any comments on those, expansion of your responsibilities when we talk about the different types of alerts? I know,
Yeah,
Carey, you mentioned a little bit about the Indigenous one.
Yeah, that's been the biggest one for us in the last year. But fortunately, that particular alert is the very first alert passed in Washington State that included funding. So here we are, we now have money. So it's been an educational issue for the missing Indigenous, educating the public, educating law enforcement on when and how to use it, kind of coming up with policies and procedures around it has been a challenge in the last year. How are we going to implement it? What's the purpose of it? What was the intent of the legislation? That's been a bit of a challenge, but I think we're finally got our brains wrapped around it. But I think training and education and outreach for law enforcement and the public is an ongoing challenge, and I think that's the case for anybody. So yeah, being a small group again has limited us on our ability to get out there. So we're looking at alternative ways with online training, that type of thing, just other ways of getting information out to law enforcement and the public.
Lieutenant?
Yeah, I agree with both of with both Rachel and Carrie. It's hard when we have disparate alerts between states. Everybody in the United States knows exactly what an Amber Alert is. It's a nationwide program. It has name recognition, but uh, I didn't even know that Florida had a purple alert. We have a yellow alert that I think nobody in Washington or Florida has any idea what it is. So it's really hard. Education is really important. We what both Carrie and Rachel said. We push out on our social media page all of our California alerts so that people get to know those alerts, because we have the feather alert now, which is very similar to Washington's missing Indigenous persons alert. We have a yellow alert, which is for persons killed in a hit and run accident, and they're still looking for an outstanding suspect. We have our amber alert, our silver alerts, and they're considering even more alerts within California. Texas, I believe, has 11 alerts, and it's just at some point you have to balance the number of alerts you have with the public's ability to actually do anything with those alerts, and the public's knowledge of those alerts. I would venture to say that in Texas, not everybody knows what all 11 of those alerts are or what they're supposed to do. And that's an education and also maybe an oversaturation issue when it comes to having that many different alerts within your state. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about Texas. That's not what I mean. I know that it's a challenge when you have that many alerts to make sure that the public is engaged and educated on all of that information.
Yeah, I think that piece is really important. You know, when they see the amber, and here in Florida, when we see silver, like I know exactly what that means. But to your point, you know, if I was in California and I saw a yellow alert, I would have no idea. I would be like, pollen? That would be a pollen alert here in Florida. Is there anything you'd like to improve upon or any projects you're working on now to enhance your alerting success? That could be how you're receiving those requests, how quickly you're sending them out, any kind of legislative, you know, improvements that you're working on with your teams, things like that. Anything that you're trying to work on now, things that you're stealing from each other, all of that kind of stuff. Lieutenant, we'll go back to you.
We always look for education, technology, and investigation, like enhancing those things. Education as in educating the public. How can we get the most information out to the public, not only so they know about our alerts, but so that when they get the alert, they get the most information we can possibly give them on those alerts. So we're always looking at ways to enhance that, and you know, social media is usually the solution, and we're always looking at better ways to engage through social media. When we talk about technology, we're looking for different new technologies and different new ways to assist the investigating agency, because everybody here's California and you're thinking, well, Los Angeles and San Francisco are huge. They're giant metropolitan areas with millions of people. But Northern California is extremely sparsely populated with very, very small agencies. So we can get a call from Los Angeles Police Department where they have all the resources at their fingertips to help assist them in the investigation, and all they want us to do is activate an alert for them, which is great. We're happy to help. We're still going to offer whatever resources that we have, but then we may get a call from Siskiyou County where they have one deputy working for their entire county, and they need some additional resources that we can offer them. We have uniformed personnel with investigative experience that can provide them with cell phone tracking, vehicle tracking through onboard vehicular cell signal, license plate reader, social media tracking, and all of those other resources that we can help fill in the gap for those smaller agencies. So we're always looking for better ways to help investigate, and we don't ever take over the investigation. That's not our purpose. That's not what we want to do. We give you everything that we possibly can and say, here's what we have to offer you. Use it as best as you can, because you guys are the boots on the ground. You guys are the ones who are actually investigating this. You guys are the ones who are going to actually put hands on that victim and actually get them safe. And then well, I already covered social media, so yeah, that's about it.
Perfect. Carrie?
I love stealing stuff from California. It's so fun. I'm going to steal your idea about technology and just say that I think that the future of our unit will be that assisting point of contact. We're not uniformed officers or commissioned officers, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be the subject matter experts as far as the resources that are available to agencies. I am familiar with the ALPR, the license plate reader system that California has the ability to tap into several of those and how those work. And unfortunately, that's lacking in Washington. And so, you know, that's kind of on my radar to kind of look into that a little more and how we can provide assistance to agencies in our state and what's available here. Because to be honest, that's an area I'm just not familiar with. And then not to be repetitive, but training and outreach are always a challenge. And I think we need to focus on getting better at that as well.
Perfect. And I know I assisted with both California and Washington, your guys' rollout of Everbridge. You're both using like the incident management tool to kind of quickly send out your alerts. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that has changed your alerting timeframe?
Yeah, can I take that one? That was a huge transition in the way we were doing things. We were using the pre-formatted, antiquated LEAP system, the law enforcement alerting portal. And it was a fill in the blank system that required very little thought. They hit a button and it went out. They, you know, no ability to modify or change anything. So with Everbridge now, you know, we're formatting our own posters. We're have the ability to create the templates within Everbridge that will do what we need it to do for the various alerts, you know, whereas Amber now is geographically targeted. So I have a template for Eastern Washington, I have a template for Western Washington. And so building those templates and learning how other states are using the templates has been a big deal for us and how to roll those out and how to create those. So that was extremely useful. I found it interesting when I was going through the programming with Everbridge folks is that they were just kind of shaking their head the whole time, like, you're using the system for like 2% of what it could do. And I'm like, I understand that, but we need to wrap our brains around this new way of doing business first before we try to expand what we're already doing. You know, we have to get a grip on, you know, how we're going to use it now before we expand. And that we're also using IPAWS for the first time. In the past, emergency management did the EAS and NECMEC did the WIA. Now we're doing all of it minus EAS, which again, that's another project on my radar to try to get us up and running with that portion of it. But it's just been, for us, it's been a whole new way of doing business, a whole different process on how we're getting the information out. And I think we're a year in now. July 1st will be a year of us using the system this way, and I think we're getting more comfortable with it, I guess, and learning new ways of doing things. So yeah, I got to give California the credit because I did steal like half of what we're doing from the CHP, and thank you guys for that. That was much appreciated. So yeah, I think that's it for us.
Yeah, I used to joke when I was a customer on the Everbridge side that Everbridge is like your brain, like you're only really using like 10% of it, and that there is so much more that you can do. And now that I'm on the Everbridge side, I am that person that is like talking to the customers. I'm like, you could do this, you could, and they're just like, calm down. We just want to do like what we need to do right now. Like, so I'm guilty of that. And then Lieutenant, I know when we were onboarding CHP, it was like, we need it done today. I think we rolled everything out in one day. Like I got a frantic call and they were like, cancel everything that you have. We're doing, you know, CHP today because they need it, I think by Monday, and it was a Friday. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. So kudos to you for somehow managing that, because yeah, it was a little frantic and a little panicked on our end. So the background of it is we were using a different mass notification and alerting software solution, and it just wasn't meeting our needs. But we were in this really weird pickle where we were in this very short window where our contract with that particular software was ending, and we had the option and the availability to transition to another software solution. And you guys were, I mean, I give a lot of credit to one of my sergeants, Sergeant Matt Whitworth, who you worked with when you were helping us out, but he was the one who did all the research, and he came to me and he's like, hey, look, Everbridge is what we need. So again, huge mass panic. Thank you, Kate, for everything that you did, because you guys got us onboarded and up and running in one day, which I still have no idea how you did it, because I was confused beyond belief.
I don't remember either. Yeah, that was, I think, well, it was a lot of credit to you and your team. Like, you guys had a process, and we just kind of like plugged in where Everbridge was going to take over that process. So you guys were already kind of like a well-oiled machine. You were just missing that like technology like standpoint, and we were able to kind of like plug in really quickly. You're like, we need to send these. This is how we send it. We send it to social media, and we were able to kind of like develop those templates pretty quickly and get your IPOS certificates loaded and all of that kind of fun stuff. So,
well, I appreciate everybody giving California so much credit here, but I will be the first to say that we just said, hey Everbridge, we have this big dream, and can you make it happen? And then we said, oh yeah, we need it tomorrow. So thank you guys so much for everything you did, and yeah, the transition between our earlier software solution and you guys has been tremendously beneficial. It's made our process much more efficient than it used to be, and given us new tools that we didn't have before to make it work.
Perfect. I know we're getting a little bit close to time, but Hannah, did we have any questions from the crowd?
Yes, we do have a couple questions. So first, I'll do, how do you assess the level of urgency or risk associated with a missing persons alert? So are there specific indicators or circumstances that prompt a more widespread alert, or how do you determine how many people the alert's going to go out to?
I can kick off that one if you want. I think our best tool is the history of the alerts that we've activated. We use the information from our historical records to base what we believe to be more in danger versus less in danger, and we use a kind of a data analytical approach to that. You know, it's funny that everybody thinks about Amber Alert 10 years ago, and you would think about stranger abductions only, but more of our Amber Alerts are launched for familial or relative or close relatives than we do for stranger abductions anymore. But we have to be careful there, because we don't want to ever launch an Amber Alert just for a custodial issue. We have to have some danger, and unfortunately, there are definitely circumstances where there is a danger to a child from their own parent. We've had issues where one parent killed another parent and grabbed the child, or threw a parent out of a car and ran off with the kid, and things like that. When you hear that, we definitely know that there's danger to that child. That's articulable information to say that there's danger to the child. But oftentimes we'll get a call with an agency who really doesn't know, and they'll just say, hey, we have a parent who doesn't have custodial rights and they took the child. And we say, well, where's the danger? Because unless we have some more articulable information to say that the child's in danger, a parent under normal circumstances in the right state of mind doesn't want to harm their child. So we don't ever want to get involved in a custodial issue, and that goes for any other of our alerts either. You know, with silver alerts, we always have to balance, hey, these are adults who can make their own decisions. We don't launch a silver alert just because an adult, his family doesn't know where he is, unless we know that there's a danger to this person. You know, if the person has medical issues or cognitive issues, then we know that we need to launch this alert. But just because a person who's over 65 years old walked away from their home and their family doesn't know where they are, but why is he in danger? Does he have a mental disability or a physical disability that we need to worry about? Or is this just some guy who walked away from his home and has the right to do that? So we always have to balance it based on the information that we're given and the history of the alerts that we've activated in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely like that threshold piece of things. I know, Rachel, you guys kind of look at how long it's been since they've been missing and that kind of stuff because of the length of our state and all of that kind of stuff, like how those thresholds work for you guys.
Yeah, I think the lieutenant nailed it. We can only go off of what is provided to us. So in Florida, we have yes/no criteria. We have a conference call when it comes to child alerts where our sworn members are also on the phone and sort of asking, again, define what that endangerment is. What are you going to charge them with? That kind of differentiates between an Amber and a missing child alert. And we look at what we've done in the past, so what we set precedent with. And also, if we're fully staffed and it's happening, you know, in the building, we have secondary analysts. So while the lead analyst is working the phone and getting all the information and entering it, our secondary analysts are looking in our other databases. So, you know, criminal history can come up, Baker Acts can come up, things like that, DCF involvement that the local agency wasn't aware of. So we combine all of our information to see what it's going to meet and where it's going to go and what we can. The big thing is, will the alert, the purpose of the alert is to notify the public. Is it going to help or hinder the investigation if we let the public know?
Good point. Carrie?
Yeah, I just, you know, the scenarios are what drives the decision making, or the situation, the circumstances around the case. And I always kind of default back, and when I do training, one of my standard training pieces of advice I give is, can the person return without assistance? And if so, it's not an alert. If the person needs immediate assistance to return to safety, or if they're in immediate danger of being killed, and not even just a child. We had an adult female kidnapped, quote unquote, by her estranged husband by force. The 911 call supported that. She was physically taken out of her home, and when law enforcement arrived, there was evidence of a struggle. There was evidence she had been injured. We made the decision at that point to activate the WIA for that particular case. And it's the first time we've activated WIA for an adult, but you know, the circumstances said she was in immediate danger of being killed or seriously injured if we did not activate the WIA. She was able to get back to assistance on her own, but the WIA did help in identifying the suspect vehicle later on. Somebody spotted the vehicle. So yeah, I would say the conversation between the primary agency, what's going on at the scene, will that alert assist? Is there an immediate need? Those are all decisions that go into deciding where and how to alert for us.
Yeah, and if I can add, and I'm sure Carrie and Rachel will agree with me, the more information the investigating agency can give us, the better off we are. Because oftentimes we get an investigating agency that just doesn't even have all the facts yet. And sometimes we will gather the facts. Again, we'll offer the resources to help, but the more information that we can get from that agency that's calling us, the better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise today. We're up on time, but again, special thank you to our panelists for joining us, and thank you to all of our listeners for taking a moment out of your day to join. Be sure to be on the lookout for the recording coming this week. And everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.